Hi friends, today we're going to be going over how to do a garter stitch coaster. It's the perfect project for beginners. It only uses one stitch, and we'll review how to cast on, how to do the knit stitch, how to bind off, and how to finish in the edges. So let's go ahead and get started. Hi, if you're new, I'm Danielle, and on my channel I do knit and crochet tips, tutorials, patterns, and vlogs. So like and subscribe if you want to see more of my videos. Alright, so here we have our garter stitch coaster piece. It is approximately 5 inches, a little over 5 inches, around 5.5 by 5 or so. And this will depend on your tension and how many rows you decide to knit. These are some sample pieces I've done just to demonstrate the gauge. So we are using Line Brand 24/7 cotton. This is a weight 4 worsted yarn, cotton of course, and the recommended needles for this are a 4mm needle, size 6, so that's what I've used here as well, and creating a swatch piece that makes around a 4x4 piece. This is unblocked and this is blocked, so side by side it does stretch out a little bit, as you'd expect. So compared, this ended up being, I think, around 3.5, yeah, 3.5. I knit a bit tight, I think, so comparatively, this is the piece we'll be doing, but you could always make your piece a little bit smaller if you'd like. I'm going to give instructions for this larger garter stitch piece because it is nicer to use as a coaster. You can see here's the water bottle I put. It's a bit of a nicer size compared to the smaller piece. So we'll go ahead and do the bigger piece for that. So materials, going over those really quickly again. We've got the needles, as I mentioned, size 4mm or size 6, Line Brand 24/7 cotton worsted weight, size 4 yarn. We've got scissors to cut the yarn at the end. We've got a needle to sew in our ends as well. And optional, you don't really need this, but you could get a measuring stick or instrument to make sure you have the size that you like on your piece. So let me go ahead and clear this off and we can get started. Alright, so we've got our yarn and our needles. We're going to go ahead and cast on. We start with 30 to cast on, and I prefer to use the long tail cast on method, but you can use whatever cast on method you're comfortable with, whatever you'd like to use. I'll go ahead and link a video I'm going to make for comparing a standard cast on, which is easier for beginners, and the long tail cast on, which is my preferred. So go ahead and view that really quickly if you need help casting on. I'm going to go ahead and just cast on, so I'm going to make it approximately 2 or 3 times the length of what I need. 30 stitches, probably a little bit less than that, so we're going to go ahead and make our slip knot here. And we're going to cast on 30. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 15, 20, 29, and 30. Oops, 30. So that should be 30 here. Let's go ahead and count. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 26, 28, 30. Perfect. So we got 30 here. And I'll go ahead and demonstrate the main stitch. The only stitch we're going to be doing for this is the knit stitch for garter. So we're going to insert our needle into the first stitch from the bottom, pop out the side, wrap our yarn around the needle, use our finger to secure it, and then pull it back through and pop it off the needle. So again, I'll do it a little bit closer. So we're going to go under the front, wrap around and secure with our finger, and then pull it back the way we came in and pop it off. And that's really all there is to it. We're just going to knit this entire row, all 30 stitches together. So we'll go ahead and do that. Oops. And if you split that, you just a tip as well, obviously, you don't want to split the yarn. So you saw I split the yarn here. Make sure you're not splitting the yarn. That can be more difficult depending on your tension and which yarn you're using. So just pay some attention as you're going. Whoops. All right, we've just got a couple more. Great, so that's our first row done. We've just knit 30, and you can see the nice knit V's right there. So now we're going to turn our work to the back side. And this, the garter stitch, there's no right or wrong side. Some stitches they're meant to be facing a particular direction, and the wrong side would be the side that faces inward. But this stitch looks great on both sides. It's just one stitch, so it's reversible. And this is the purl side right now. The purl's facing us, so go ahead and rewrap your yarn. Make sure you didn't accidentally wrap your yarn around or make an extra stitch when you were rotating it. And this is clearly our first stitch of the 30. We're just going to go in and we're just going to knit again, knit all of them across the row for another 30. So this is a really nice beginner pattern because it's only one stitch. You're learning the basics. You get to practice tension. And tension is one of the biggest things that people have problems with knitting, I think. So just making sure you've got even stitches. I can tell you my stitches didn't always look like this. It's taken many years of practice. So don't be concerned or frustrated if your stitches look uneven or a little bit wonky. It'll just take some practice. And that's our second row done and rotated. So you can see it's starting to look a little bit more like our swatch piece. And we're just going to keep repeating that. And we're going to keep doing that. And this is where the measuring utensil is helpful. You can make it as big as you'd like. So as I mentioned, this is swatched for a particular size. So I'd recommend just making sure it looks square as it starts to come down as you knit more rows, just making sure that vertically, when you're thinking of starting to cast off, it's looking square and even on any of the sides. So I'll just knit one more with you, and then I'll show you how to cast off. And then after that, it's just a matter of sewing in the ends, and then we'll be done already. So really easy pattern. You can focus on the stitches. You don't have to memorize any particular pattern sequence in terms of stitches in the row or even number of rows of the pattern. Some of them can get really long, but this one is nice and straightforward. You can get a rhythm down once you've gotten some practice. It's very meditative, which is great. All right, so that's another row down. And I'll go ahead and meet you towards the end as you find that it's square and you're looking to cast off. So I'll meet you there. All right, so we've knit approximately how long we want the coaster to be vertically. If you want to count your rows to make sure if you're making multiple of these that they're around the same, you're going to count the ridges and then multiply by 2. So for example, where are you? That'd be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. But each of these rows is a knit row on the opposite side. So that'd be 10 rows. That's an example. So just make sure if you want to make multiple of these and have them the same, precisely the same, make sure you're counting the rows and note that down somewhere. Or if you want to be less precise, we can just measure it. So let's go ahead and do the bind off, assuming that you're done knitting. So I'm just going to show a standard bind off that's beginner friendly. So we're going to start by knitting as usual, knit the second one, and here's where we do something a little bit different. We're going to pass this first stitch over top of the second one, so we've only got one remaining on the right hook. Repeat knit and then cast it over again. So keep doing that. Knit one and pass the previous one over. Knit one, pass the previous stitch on the right hook. So then you're going to see we're starting to get a bit of an edge here. So we're just going to keep on doing that until we get to the end. And there are different types of bind offs you can do. Some are stretchier than others, and they've got different advantages, disadvantages. And if you want to go deep into the world of bind off, that's a fun place to explore. But we're just going to keep it simple for this project. And I should say too, for the bind off, it doesn't really matter where your starting row tail is for this one in particular, because it's reversible. So mine just happens to be on this left side. It could be on any side. It's totally up to you, wherever you feel comfortable starting to do your bind off. Alrighty, we're almost down to the last few stitches here. And all right, last one, pass it over. And now we can go ahead and cut our work. So we're gonna go ahead and snip that and pull this through, and we can tighten it a little bit. So now we've got our finished square, but it's not quite done yet. We've got these tails hanging out that we want to sew in as well. So we're gonna take our darning sewing needle and thread it onto a tail. And I just like to weave in and out. Make sure you're going in multiple directions, at least maybe 2 or 3 times, to make sure it's secure. It's less likely to work its way out when it's been going in multiple directions. So I'm just threading it along this first stitch here. And I don't really have any particular rhyme or reason to the pattern that I do. I like to kind of follow the stitches a little bit so that it blends in a little bit more. Go in this one, and then I'm going to rotate it, maybe drop down into here, go around that post, through here. And now we're going to change directions the first time. So I'm going to go down this row. We're just hiding it the best we can. And I'm going to go ahead down this next one, change direction again. And one more time, just go back in this way. All right. It's looking pretty good. So we'll pull a little bit, and you can't really tell unless you've got a keen eye that that's where it's sewn into. So we can go ahead now. I'm just going to weave it up this way a little bit. There we go. Pull it a little bit again. And I'm going to cut it pretty close. And that's one end finished off. We can go ahead and do the other end, because remember there are 2. There's the starting and the bind off rows. So we'll do this one as well. And this time maybe I'll show going vertical instead. So I'm going to go this way. Pass it through. Make sure you're not pulling too tight so that it pulls the fabric and cinches it. That's one thing you definitely don't want to do. It'll be a bit more obvious that way. Through here. Try to only go under one stitch at a time. That way it blends in just a little bit better. Changing direction again. Go down this way. Cool. That looks pretty good. We've done a couple of direction changes. I'm just going to push this through here and then bring it out to the side a little bit and pull it. Happy with that. So we're going to go ahead again and cut this. And there we go. Our finished garter stitch coaster. Looks pretty good. All right, I hope you enjoyed this pattern. If you did, please like and subscribe. I have many more knitting and crochet patterns coming soon, also tutorials, and if there's anything you want to see, please comment and let me know. If there's anything you're interested in terms of tutorials or patterns, anything at all. I hope you have a great day.